Welcome to the Halloween Marathon of 2022.
Up to now I have talked about many good and some not so good games that go great with the Halloween season. However, they all have one thing in common, and that is that they all have some kind of a tie to a horror theme. This game over here takes it up one notch by not only implementing a horror theme to its gameplay, but being critically praised as a major launch point for the horror survival genre, which went on to explode in the mid-1990s thanks to a game called Resident Evil. And that game owes a debt of gratitude to this next one that I'm going to talk about.
あのスイートホームのファミコン化に成功したぞ。呪われた屋敷に閉じ込められてしまった5人のテレビ取材班。この5人を操作して1人でも多く脱出させるのが君の使命だ。さあ逃げろ。グズグズしていると屋敷に殺されてしまうぞ。暗闇に気をつけろ。邪悪なクリーチャーが君を待ち受けているぞ。みんなのことなんか知らないもん。僕は一人で逃げるんだもん。なんていうやつは真っ先に殺されてしまう。みんなで知恵を絞りお互い助け合わねば脱出は不可能なのだ。僕がやられても君は逃げるんだぞ。さあ呪われた屋敷から君は脱出できるか。脱出した人数によって5つの感動的なエンディングが君を待っている。愛と恐怖の脱出アドベンチャースイートホームザ・ファミコン。心の力を私にください。心の力。
Sweet Home for the Famicom. It was released at the very end of the 1980s actually, on December 1989. Acting as director of the game is the great Tokuro Fujiwara. And if the name is not familiar to you, well then some of the games that he was largely responsible for on the arcade side will be Ghosts and Goblins, Commando, Ghouls and Ghosts, and Strider are some of the big arcade hits that he worked on. He went on to be a producer for some great hits on the Nintendo as well, such as Bionic Commando and Mega Man 2. His resume for that time is just simply amazing. So when a movie on the Japanese horror market titled Sweet Home was released, Fujiwara was very inspired to create a video game based on that movie. The story, it's a simple one. 5 journalists travel inside a mansion to try and recover some hidden artifacts that were placed there by an artist many years before. However, the journalists soon find out that the house is inhabited by monsters and ghosts and are out to kill the team of 5. At that point, it's up to you to traverse the mansion as you slowly solve the puzzles and avoid being killed by the enemies inside of it. Sounds familiar.
Jill, run for that house!
The assortments of baddies here are plentiful. There are around 24, with some others being just copycats of other enemies. The ones that I truly hate are the worms. The game has you playing from an overhead view like most RPGs of those days, but it changes over to a first-person view once enemies attack. The game is difficult in that you have limited weapons and not many health options along the way. There are no shops, there's no spells, or magical items to bestow the ability to revive fallen colleagues. If you lose someone in battle, then they are gone, and you will have to finish the game without them. This affects the different endings in the game. A mechanic that was introduced with this title right here is that of QuickTime events. I'm not sure if this title was the first one to have these type of QuickTime events, but clearly it was a new feature back in the day. The game really takes the survival horror aspect and runs with it. There are limited potions to collect for health, your inventory for each character is very limited, and permadeath is a thing here. It's basically playing a Final Fantasy game with extreme in-game rules with a horror theme attached to it. The tricky part with this game is trying to figure out how the parties will be divided and what characters to take with you. Each one of them has specific items that are only available to that character. For example, one of the characters carries a vacuum, and you will need that in order to scoop up glass from the floor. Otherwise, you cannot proceed. You can also break up the parties into any which way you want, but the maximum party number is 3, and you definitely don't want to leave a character to wander the mansion all alone, or that surely means death. Another thing you will be doing, which is kind of obnoxious and annoying after a while, is you'll be swapping parties and items over and over again. Sometimes you will approach a puzzle or something that requires a specific item that is not currently in your party, so at that point you will have to swap to the other party and navigate them to the current location that your other party is on. Sometimes you might have an injured or poisoned colleague which requires help, and the item necessary to aid that colleague is not currently in your party. So at that point you would have to switch the member that has the needed item to that other party so you can administer that said item to the hurt colleague. In other words, you're going to be doing a lot of back and forth in the menus. This might be a big turnoff for some people out there. Graphics on this one, it's an 8. Some gore here and there, and the developers, they weren't afraid to show it. This right here was one of the main reasons the game was never released outside of Japan. The mansion and the creepy ambience are a great reminder that Capcom was one of the top developers during that time. The worn out mansion looks great in terms of 8-bit graphics. Gameplay here gets an 8. The RPG part of the game combined with the survival aspect was a nice change of pace during a time when swords and sorcery settings were the norm on RPGs. I applaud Capcom for taking a chance here, even going one step further and incorporating gore and violent graphic settings, knowing full well Nintendo and Nintendo of America would not approve of that, and in best case scenario would only push back somewhat. The limited inventory and health options might scare some gamers from truly diving deep with this title, but its impact and the legacy it left can't be ignored. With all that said, this one gets a 9 on the Halloween meter. It has blood, it has gore, it has a modern setting in a survival horror ambience with a nice touch of RPG to it. This game screams Halloween. And to top it off, you can watch the movie it was based off after playing it. I hear it's silly and cheesy. Great combination.
なんか変なんだ。ほら、こんなとこにも絵が出てきちゃったんですよ。ほら、こっちにも。ラスカのとこにも。食堂全体が絵になってるんだ。
So, this is it. Tomorrow is Halloween, the final day of the marathon. And I tried to save the best for last. Last year, that honor went to the great PS1 title, Silent Hill. This year, a title that takes the spirit of Halloween and just runs with it. Don't miss this one.